Hello and welcome once again to MANtalk, Kingdom Men Global Networks program, where we discuss issues around positive masculinity. We, as we've said at the beginning of this discussion, we'll be looking at this issue of the relationship between man and woman as God has designed it through the eyes of the Bible. And with me is Pastor Dennis Onwegu, who is one of the stewards of Kingdom Men Global Network.
Thank you very much for having me around today. The number of violence since COVID-19 in many societies is on the increase. Why? There is frustration. There are things to be dealt with. The man who is used to going out very early in the morning to his workplace now sits back at home, and his wife, who is not used to having him or the children 24/7, now has him at home, and then they still make the same demand. Their demand for money, the demand for food, the demand for shelter has not changed. And that man is expected to provide that. And in the process where he cannot, has the woman appreciated enough? Because most of the gender-based violence, if you look through it, the women also, most times, they murder even their men with their mouth. The things they say to them. Some terrible things. And the easiest thing to know is that when the man lifts up the hand to beat the woman, which is a crime in the first place, nobody is supporting that. Society will frown at it, the society will kick against it. And what society simply does is pick him up, lock him up in the jail. That does not save. So we see that it's on the increase. How come we are jailing more men, we are putting more men under control, yet it's not solving it? So we need to sit back and engage. There has to be a proper engagement, society onto the man, and look at the issues that the man is also dealing with. And until we begin to also change the way we treat the male child, even in the home, he will continue to experience this, because if he does not understand love, and is not taught on how to show love, how is he going to show it to the lady out there? And so these conflicts have to be dealt with, and we need to have to pay more attention to the men. We need to do it. The societies, the groups that are looking at male, they are in the right direction, but they need to be empowered, they need to be strengthened, and they need to be encouraged. And this discussion, like the MANtalk here, needs to continue to grow. And at some point, we need to bring the women into the same fold. Let's discuss these issues. What is it that you are expecting from your man? And what is it you, the man, expecting from your woman? So what is the gap that you are not seeing, and this is not, so how can we fill this gap? And until we begin to do this, we cannot change this narrative.
Okay, all of that is very true, and I agree with you, but there is this thing that when we talk about society, who are we talking about? If the man is the dominant person, are we calling on the men who are the head in society to change certain things about them? Because when we talk about society, what do we really mean if, as we have said, the men are the ones in charge? Because every society is a collection of families. So when we talk about society, we're talking about a collection that is headed by design, by God's design, by men.
Yes. And that is why, just like we started at the opening, men are the problem, men are the solution. A man who is not properly discipled and he occupies a position of authority is not likely to appreciate what is required of him. So we need ministries like Kingdom Men. We need other men ministries out there to begin to engage, disciple men appropriately, so that when they go to the public space, they will easily recognize even the man next door, the man sitting beside them, that this man needs to be helped. Though yes, he may have all the academic qualifications, though yes, he may have all the money that you need in the world, but that does not make him the man. There is still much more. Discipleship. A man who is not discipled is not able to give what he does not have. He cannot run a system. Societies, countries are failing, economies are failing in the hands of men. So we need to engage. Why is it happening? and we begin to appreciate that the man needs help at this time, and this help must come also from the men.
All right, I really don't know how much more time we have, but incidentally, circulating since yesterday, I think, is a tribute paid to the late Abakari by the daughter. It was such a moving, such a moving tribute that I think many men need to read it, as many men as possible, because in the end, what that lady had to say about the father, how the father protected her, provided for her, how, for instance, she said that until the man passed on, there was not one day when they didn't communicate. And so in the end, that's what it will come to. How much are you of a good father are you? How much of a good husband are you? How much of a friend are you? A good friend are you? In our humanity is basically based on that. But I think this is a discussion that needs to continue, because number one, it is clear from all that we've said that we're going to take a look at responsibilities of the man. When we read the Bible, and I believe when we continue this discussion, we look at a few scriptures, because basically, if you really come to see it, is as if God is unfair to the man. It's as if a lot of responsibility is on the shoulder of the man. If we check the Bible, we'll find that right there in the Bible, if your child isn't doing well, you're responsible. If your wife isn't doing well, you're responsible. And so on and so forth. Awesome responsibility, isn't it?
But then, I usually say that it would be an unjust God to assign the man the responsibility without equipping him. There is an equipping, and we need to discover the equipping that is in the man.
All right, so men, you are right, men need a lot of equipping, because, and God, as you said, God is not unjust. He has given us the equipping. It's just that, just like you said, society didn't pay attention, and that's the men. And that's because even men never really saw themselves beyond the point of I'm a leader. And so until 10, maybe 15 years ago, you never really found books, for instance, dealing with men. Maybe 20, and that certainly wasn't in Nigeria. You found that a man simply, the moment he opens his eyes like this and he's male, leader don't come. And as a leader, nobody bothers to equip him. And that again is the issue, is an issue that we had, is an issue with the men. Look, when we look closely at our reading of the Bible, many people shy away from this issue of the pivotal role of the man, because they think that it is not politically correct. It's they will be called chauvinists and so on. As a result of that, the equipment that the man requires and which God has provided is not pushed forward, even in our churches. Which is why in many churches, when you talk about men's fellowships, they gather men only when there is a building fund to raise, or fund for such and such a thing to raise. So it is that equipping that I believe that we are now called upon as ministries to show the men. rather than shy away from the responsibility to show the men that, as a matter of fact, you already have been equipped for this assignment, even if society says otherwise, because the discussion has been, the narrative out there now is being hijacked by people who think that what we're talking about is too much to expect of a man. He's only a man anyway, and that is true. But is it really too much? Has God not provided in His Word, in the scheme of things, the way a man ought to understand his identity and therefore his role?
And it's quite clear from what we are saying. Some of this, if we ever spent half the kind of investment that has gone into building up the girl child and the women over the last 50 years or thereabout, just half of such, or even a quarter, into bringing up men to understanding their roles, I'm very sure that some of these crises would have really been a thing of the past. But over time, just like you pointed out, men think they are okay. Men are just fine. Men are adequate. In what ways? And they fail. When he fails and he has nobody to rumble to, before you know it, men commit suicide. They are loners. They get involved with all manner of terrible things because the identity crisis is what has been driving them to the grave. And until you deal with it, it will continue, because why? The next man looks at where the other man failed and he thinks he can just find a shortcut through it, and that way, that he wasn't smart enough. No, it's that he also had not dealt with that crisis of identity, of who he is. The moment you know who you are, for instance, a king does not need to announce himself as king when he steps into a place. The insignia of office, the paraphernalia of his office announces him. He does not need to shout out, "I am the king." No. The lion simply gets into an environment and he roars, and every other animal around knows that the lion is in the territory, is in the zone. Why? He does not need to go and knock each door. So the man, if he knows who he is, would also, in the same way, when he steps in a place and he does what he has. You spoke about Abakiari's daughter, for instance. Some of his friends spoke wonderful things about him. But society, looking at him from the other perspective, thinks he's an evil. That is a man. Remember, every man who comes to any office carries a certain cross. And I said to one of his friends who wrote a wonderful piece about him, I sent him a message and I said, I am convinced that Abakiari knew his assignment. He also knew the consequences, and he bore his cross with equanimity and courage. So how many other men would understand their calling and be still tender to their families, to their children, to their daughters?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that is the testimony that is critical.
As chief of staff.
Chief of staff to the president, especially at a time as this.
As chief of staff, the daughter said she will come home for dinner. And if need be, return to work.
Every day.
Every day.
And communicated.
And if such day ever comes that he cannot, he would call to say, please don't wait up for me. And obviously, those have to be the exception rather than the rule.
And that's because, you see, we need to begin to deal with this. Our society has a tendency to condemn a man faster who is even walking in his pathway as a man, because the society also lacks an understanding of what the role of the man is. Coming from that young woman tells you clearly what the man was able to combine between his public life and his private life. And if you ask me, such are the testimonies that will guide even a girl to making the right choice for a future partner.
Absolutely. I think that is the direction we will go when we continue this discussion next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It's been awesome having you. What we will do next is As we go along in this series, I believe there will be time to have a female join us, particularly as there are several issues ahead of us that we need to look at. Thank you very much. It's on this note that we end today's episode. Thank you very much for listening in, for watching us. We'll be back with you next time. Actually, this program runs Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and you will be advised on the time.